should you be with it?
All right, how aggressive? So I like to say, you know, I said earlier, we primarily hunt in the pre-rut or the rut. Well, we all know that that window isn't extremely large. So I always err on the side of aggressive. And what I mean by that is I'm gonna do everything I can to get inside of 80 yards so that I can have an opportunity to present a decoy and have those animals react to the decoy.
It seems like that 80 yards is a nice little bubble. It's a nice buffer.
Yep.
And, you know, and it's not hard to get to.
Right.
If you try, you'd be shocked what you can get away with once you be a little more aggressive.
Yeah. So I feel like the question is two-part. One is how aggressive do I get as far as do I take chances to get to a position? And the answer is yes, I always take chances. Obviously use your head. I mean, don't just, you know, put the decoy up. We talked about this earlier. Don't just sit there and walk behind the decoy across an open field where they can see your legs below the decoy, and that usually doesn't go well. But if I need to, you know, jump across a fence and then hit the ground, or, you know, if I'm doing anything to somewhat be aggressive to where I can close that, you know, get to that next stop point or checkpoint to get, you know, into position, I always err on the side of aggression. And then the next part of the question is how aggressive do you get with the decoy and vocalizations? Do you have something to add?
I do.
Okay.
So the aggressive part is you got to be aggressive to get to the bubble.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And what is that? Well, sometimes it's running. Sometimes it's squat walking. Sometimes it's crawling. Sometimes it's getting baked in the sun for, you know, a little bit so they maybe go over a hill so you can take off running after. I mean,
Yes.
you know, so that part of it is we're very aggressive to get to that spot where we think that it's an easy enough for them to come in or get a reaction so we can get them into bow range, close bow range.
Right. I like to use what we call like checkpoints, or, you know, and Garrett mentioned the bubble. Okay, the bubble is where we want to finally chill out and set up and present the decoy. I call checkpoints the positions where, okay, I want to get to this clump of trees and then we'll see what the deer are doing. We'll let them make a move, maybe bed down, maybe change 25 yards of where they're at. Then we're going to get to another checkpoint, and we're just going to keep playing chess with them until we get in the bubble. Then we're going to present the decoy and let things happen. So anyway, we're going to get aggressive to get to all those points to get ourselves in position.
Yeah, yeah, and don't feel bad about taking off running. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking at this hill behind Travis here, and you know, if I was trying to work this buck and he wasn't coming in and he went over the hill, I'd be running up to the ridge.
Yes.
I mean, as fast as I could.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Same here. I've ran, I've crawled, I've had to wait. You know, everything you could think of. Just do whatever it takes to give yourself an opportunity to get into that bubble range.
Yeah.
Even we talked about this, you and I, the other day. Even if you have to, you know, stand up and wave the decoy, or you know, almost grunt loudly, or
Well,
you know,
you had a buddy.
my buddy Jesse, our buddy Jesse, he actually yelled with his human voice to get a buck that was trailing a doe up and away at 250 yards. Yells at this deer, and he stops and looks back, sees the decoy, turns around from 250 and comes into 20 yards, and he killed him. It's all on video, and it is just, yeah, you just never know what it's going to take. So aggressive, that's what we're talking
That
about.
would be extreme.
That's extreme.
That is extreme, and
Yes.
I've never done that, but there's been times I've wanted to,
Yeah.
you know, I've wanted to scream at him because I didn't quite get the reaction I thought I wanted to.
I have stood up and raised it above my head, you know, flashed the decoy, grunted loudly, snort, wheeze, whatever you got to do to get them to look.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times once they see it, the chances are very good that they're probably going to come take a look.
Yeah, and at that point, then you reel it into, you know, dial it into more realistic stuff. But
Yeah.
do whatever it takes to get him to see the decoy. That's the point. As
Yes.
far as your aggressive part.
Yes.
Now, okay, so vocalization. So we don't do a lot of vocalization. Probably underutilized with mule deer, I'm guessing. You know, you could probably doe bleed and stuff like that. But most of the questions we get are related to the whitetail buck decoy, and the vocalization part is it's pretty easy, honestly. I would recommend, and we sell, and this is a cheap sales pitch here, but I have a grunt tube that's that we sell on our website, and the reason why I sell it is because it's loud, and it's bold. It's like James Earl Jones, just like it's got this presence, and it's loud, and it can pierce that wind.
Yeah.
So we have one of those. It's mature grunt tube, and that's the first thing we do. Is I usually, once I get into that position, first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give him a grunt, and then after that it's kind of reading the animal. I want to make sure that they hear it, just like I want to make sure that they see the decoy. I want to make sure that they hear it, so when they snap their head around, they see the decoy, and immediately it turns red and it's on.
Yep.
And if they don't hear it, I'll do it louder. I know you start usually softer, and then louder. I usually go, bam! I'm here.
Yep.
Come get me.
Yep.
That's usually my presence. I don't snort wheeze at them unless there's paused and sitting there. Then I'll usually go real soft, and that's almost too much for them to take right there.
Yep. Yep. So if you incorporate aggressive grunts, maybe a snort wheeze if they don't come or look right away, along with a little bit of movement with the decoy, those three things right there, if they hear you and see you, or those two things, they just about can't handle it every time.
Yeah, it's very difficult for them to handle. The only time that you're going to run into a situation, not the only time, but you can almost guarantee that they're not going to leave a doe, is if there's a satellite buck nearby that you didn't see going in. If it's just him and the doe, he'll leave her. But if there's a buck, then you've got to get creative a little bit. He's not going to range as far away from her.
Yeah. And I've even had it where if a mature buck that you're after is with a doe, they may not leave immediately. You have to ramp up the aggression, or last year we had the doe get curious enough that she actually came in to see who the buck, the decoy was, and the buck, tried to stay between us and the doe, and it ended up working out with a bow shot for my wife. So anyway, you just don't think that you're ever out of the game if they don't just get up and come marching right in. So just stay in it, and again, get aggressive. In a matter of 30 minutes last year, I grunted and snort wheezed at that buck probably 20 times, and he answered almost every time with the snort wheeze.
Yeah.
But he was holding his ground because the doe and he had a separation of 150 yards.
Yeah.
So I was a non-threat, but I could not get any closer. We were in open field.
Yeah.
So, So anyway.
Yeah. So be aggressive. Like, talk some smack, deer smack, and challenge him. And that's basically what we're trying to do. Make him do something.
Yes. And one last thing to add real quick. If you're after a buck that happens to not be, or has a chance of not being the most dominant buck in the area, that's another time where they could shy away just because they've been beat out before and they're nervous or something like that.
Yeah, you don't know what happened to him 30 minutes ago.
Yes.
I mean, he could have just got his butt whooped. So.
Right. But what I always say to that when people ask me is, well, what if there's a nice buck that he's not the dominant one in the area? I always say I'm after the most dominant buck in the area. So, maybe I don't want to shoot the deer that's shying away, So anyway,
but if that's your buck and you love him, go for it, because earlier in the year, I mean, early in the rut, it seems like I've had spikes come right up to the decoy. Don't think shooing them away.
Yeah, don't let me scare you in the fact that it'll scare every buck away. That's not the case, because I've had to actually shoo away younger bucks because I didn't want to shoot them.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to get their attention. And
it seems to be that 3-year-old guy.
Yeah.
That I don't know. He's smart enough to know that he's probably got more than he's can take. But then there's the yearling and the 2-year-old that still thinks that he's not quite smart enough yet.
And a lot of times those younger class deer like that, they'll come in, but they'll be a little more cautious just because they're afraid of getting attacked.
Yeah.
But from what I've experienced, the most mature, dominant, confident bucks, there's zero hesitation. Yeah. It's game on, or they're just not coming because they have a doe and they're far enough away. But if you get inside that bubble that we're talking about, most likely they're going to come.
And I'm going to add something to this conversation here, because it's something you need to make sure that you're aware of. You know, we're talking a lot about ideal situations, and you know something? There's only a handful a year that are ideal.
Yep.
If you've got an opportunity, you got to say screw it, because it just might work. And so so that's the aggressive part.
Yes.
Don't look at this scenario and go, oh, it's not perfect, I'm just gonna sit here. That's not, you know, you may not get another chance the rest of the year. So go for it. Think about what you're doing, plot your course, have a plan, and then adjust it based on how it all rolls out. And because it could morph into something really, I mean, we got into a situation of several years, 2 years ago. We literally walked 3/4 of a mile through corn, and we thought we were going to get into this. This buck was going to be in the CRP. He came in the corn, and he's back in the CRP, and we did 3 or 4 different things, and eventually we were able to talk out our what was transpiring, and ended up being able to get a 25-yard shot in corn stalks with 2 adult humans with this decoy on a 150-inch buck. And so get out and go for it. That's the aggressive part, and learn catalog stuff. Go okay, I know I probably pushed it a little bit too much. So, and that's kind of the dilemma we're always faced with.
Yeah.
Should I push it? And if it works, great. If it doesn't, I should have laid back.
Right.
And then when you lay back and it doesn't happen, then you go, man, I should have been more aggressive. That's part of the game.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, how many times you sit in a tree stand and you see a buck laying out there at 200 yards with a doe? We haven't really talked about this yet today. But, the chances of him or her leading him by is 5%. Depending on the situation, I've seen guys sit in a tree stand all day long because they have eyes on a buck that's laying in a position where they're wide open, or they can see them bedded, locked down, whatever. Because the point is, what we're saying, get down, get mobile with the decoy, use the terrain, get inside that bubble, present the decoy, and you're going to increase your odds way more than that 5-10% that I'm just telling you about sitting in a tree stand all day. Yeah. Not saying tree stand hunting is bad. It's fantastic. I love doing it. I still do. But if you want to really start getting more consistent on mature bucks, you kind of have to make something happen.
Yeah, and we're taking advantage of the dreaded lockdown.
Yes.
You and I love the lockdown. Yep. That's when we kill our deer.
Yep. And
lockdown, people have different phases and stuff, and I think that's all bunk. Lockdown starts from the first time that the first doe comes into estrus. That buck is going to find her maybe along this creek, and what's he going to do? He's going to push her right out here into this pasture 300-400 yards away, get her by herself, and he's going to sit with her until she comes into season. He's going to mate her. He's going to zip right down here, and he's going to go over there, and he's going to do this, and he's going to find another one. He's going to push her away from all the action. So there's not like a chase phase where they're just running around, and I wrote this and submitted it to Bowhunter. They're not just running around. I mean, yeah, there's a frenzy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a short window.
There's a
little frenzy.
Because there's stuff going in the air all over the place, and bucks are going all over. I get that. Yeah. Okay. But they are still doing the same thing all November, all through the rut. They're finding a doe, they're pushing her out, they're locking her down. I guess that's the term. They're isolating her, and then that's what you and I are taking advantage of.
Right.
Okay.
And I like to tell people, okay, so you're sitting in a tree stand during daylight hours. Well, that's during November. That's only a third of the time in a 24-hour period. So the chances of that buck coming in to find another doe in the creek bottom areas where your tree stand is at during daylight is not great. They have been around the block. They know that the most action, hunting pressure, more deer to give their position away, it's down here in the creek bottom. They're going to probably access it at night.
Yeah.
So that's why you always see the biggest bucks out and away. I'm not saying they don't come through the creek bottoms, because they do, but it's unlikely for them to just stroll right by your tree stand whenever you're sitting there. Big deer taken all the time. You see the Drurys and the bow bars and all them. They shoot big deer out of tree stands and blinds all the time. Great, fantastic. But most of the time, we all know those times where you're sitting and watching in a wide open area where a buck is leaving the rest of the herd.
Yeah. So don't be upset if you're in a tree
Yeah.
and you see this scenario playing out. Be aggressive
Yes.
and grab the decoy
Yeah.
and be able to, and everybody that's whitetail hunted probably has seen this transpire.
100%.
So
Yeah.
this is your opportunity to go capitalize.
Yeah. And if you don't have it up while you're tree stand hunting, at least lay it underneath a branch at the base of the tree.
Yeah.
To where if you can use the creek drainage to get around and get in position and get within 80 yards, use that decoy and go make something happen, because he is built to defend his breeding rights with
Yeah.
that doe.
Yeah.
He is going to react to come to you, to run you off.
Yeah.
The chances of it are extremely high. Take advantage of it. Don't sit there all day and just let them come.
Yeah,
Or-
and if, you know, one of the things we didn't talk about last week, you know, when we were kind of discussing some of these frequently asked questions, you know, let's say you got a midday lull, you know, and maybe you got a little pocket that's, you know, I've seen deer in there every once in a while. Sneak in there, use our hacks, you know, put the decoy up, grab your antlers, grab your grunt tube, do a little rattling sequence in this little pocket. See if you can drum up some action.
Yeah.
So be aggressive. We talk about the lockdown and going after a targeted buck or whatever that we see.
Yeah.
You know, another part of being aggressive and trying to optimize all your time in the field, those minimal daylight hours, is to go up into these little hidey holes, sometimes downwind, stick the decoy in the ground, make sure it's visible, white antlers, tall stake, bang on them antlers, grunt, aggressive, create some commotion, see if you can drum up some action.
Yeah. If you don't want to do that, at least when you're having lunch at the midday, sit on a vantage point.
Yeah.
Use your glass.
Yeah.
Sit there for an hour. How many times you've been sitting somewhere? I mean, you drive down the road and you don't see anything. You pull off on the side of the road and have a sandwich, and all of a sudden, oh, there's a deer that I had no idea was there. Take your breaks in an area where you can glass a lot of country, because a lot of times, especially during November, you'll probably find a buck stand up, take a circle, scent check the doe that he's got bedded there, lay back down. He just gave away his position, grab the decoy. You no longer need to go to your tree stand that night because you're in the action in the middle of the day.
That's
you
right.
know? So
I've killed a lot of my deer in the middle of the day because
I love the middle of the day.
You know,
it
this-
seems like the bucks, I mean, it seems like about every 20 to 30 minutes, those big mature bucks stand up, do a circle, scent check, see how close they are to breeding, and then they'll lay right back down.
Yeah.
And if you just are patient and just sit, position yourself in a good area where you can see a lot of country, you know, CRP draws, whatever it is where you think they might be bedded, that is perfect.
yeah. And we talk about being aggressive. This is a long explanation of
Yes.
aggressiveness, but it's you want to make sure that you want to be aggressive but smart, and you know, if you do get in that ideal situation where you get a buck and a doe bedded, locked down, you know, you don't want to spook the doe. Okay?
Yep.
You don't want to spook her, because usually I have killed 2 deer when I've spooked the doe, but generally you spook the doe, that's out of there. But you know what? If you're being aggressive, you're trying to make things happen, I just said a little bit ago, you're either going to kill it or scare it.
Yep. Take the chance, do
Yeah.
it. And like you say, just play your cards right with the doe. Just bank on that doe being a little more alert than the buck. The buck has one thing on his mind, and that's the doe, not you. The doe is actually going to be the one who kind of has some attention as to
Yeah.
what's going on. So
Yeah.
just hunt the doe, and then the buck will happen for you.
Yeah, he'll come right in.
So
Yeah,
anyway.
that's it. Be aggressive and
Yep.
be mobile. Stay
right.
mobile. You know, be versatile. I guess I think is
Yes.
really the kind of the deal with these decoys. You
Yeah.
know, don't be a one instrument bow hunter, I guess, or whatever. You know, you just have a bunch of different techniques you can use, and besides, variety's great. You know?
And don't feel like you're going to learn everything from us.
Yeah.
Take it upon yourself.
Yeah.
Go try, because the best lessons I've learned are the ones that I've failed on out in the field. I've by no means perfected this thing. We always have things to learn, so get out there,
Yeah.
be mobile, and finish the job.
We've kind of got to the point where we're almost too confident.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, I'm very confident just because I've seen how
yeah.
dynamite these can be, and
Yeah.
sometimes maybe
Yeah.
it's going to bite me, but
Yeah.
anyway.
So like get after it. Don't don't sit on your heels and watch this opportunity go to waste.
Right.
So
Never know what can happen.
yeah,
Good luck out there.
you betcha.